Hi there, this is an addition to the recording that I made earlier today. I said something about being very vigilant as we move forward for signs of a narcissist, signs of narcissistic abuse, and about being the kind of person that attracts narcissists, or becoming the kind of person that will attract a narcissist, and which is more or less the validation for why you would be tempted to learn all of the signs of somebody who is attempting to control you narcissistically. My problem with that, or my issue with that, although there is some merit in it, is that it's looking externally as opposed to internally. Part of what we lose, or part of perhaps we haven't begun our relationships with, is really good knowledge of ourselves and awareness of how we feel, and valuing our internal processes. I know myself, I had difficulty putting names on my emotions. I felt things very strongly, but I just had a sea of emotion I didn't really understand, particularly after a long-term relationship with a narcissist with whom I had children, etc. So it was complicated, and it so often is complicated. So the temptation when we focus on external signs of narcissistic abuse and focus on them is that we're not really getting to know ourselves. What are our red flags? What's happening inside of us that's not okay? Life is something that we live via perception, so it's important for our own health that we have two skills, that we're able to perceive how we're thinking and feeling accurately, and also that we're able to reflect on that and challenge ourselves to change if we feel it's necessary. In a healthy relationship, we can talk through those things. Of course, in a narcissistic relationship, you don't talk through those things, and you don't learn how to do that with a narcissistic partner. So I know for myself, I have had to grow up quite a lot. I am growing up, and I'm doing it faster now that I'm in relationship with somebody who has a healthy level of narcissism and a solid ego, who also loves me and empathizes for me. That's challenging for me. It brings me to a point of honesty, which is terrifying if you've been with a narcissist, because you just don't show your soft underbelly. You don't reveal your thoughts to a narcissist, or you do less and less as the years go by. So what I thought I might do is just talk through, I've done a basic identifier. That's a cycle. So I'm going to read it to you. So what happens when you're with a narcissist is that you express your voice. Your inner voice and desire comes out. Now this in and of itself is very offensive to your narcissist. They don't want you to be the focus. They want to be central. And nobody rocks the boat unless the narcissist rocks the boat. So they will manifest rage, disappointment, cold shoulder. There's a long list. It's been covered by other people, and our response to that is often shame. We feel responsible for what they are going through, and we, because we have empathy, find their emotional state so uncomfortable that we may not be able to change it at the time, but we do what we can to avoid that happening. So bit by bit, we become trained out of expressing our voice, and we lose that connection with our voice. And for many of us, at the beginning of the narcissistic relationship, it wasn't quite as strong as it should have been. It was probably there, but nothing like theirs, put it that way. Well, in managing to avoid these situations, especially if you think that you're heading into a situation that is touch and go, that you'll see potential where your narcissist might lose the plot. They're just a little edgy. You're watching them and you think they could go either way. And then because of your actions, you manage to pour oil on the water enough, please them enough, flatter them enough, give them the meal that they really wanted to enough. They start to release a little bit of their day. They tell their joke, they tell their story. and they start to come out of it, and they are central, they're center stage in all of this. You experience relief and happiness that it's not going to be a meltdown, there's not going to be a rage, there's not going to be personal attacks about you, perhaps in front of your children, or you're not going to experience the pain of their rejection and cutting humiliation. So you start to feel happiness and you're able to laugh, and they remain the centre. You keep it about them, and you're in the cycle where you're rewarding yourself. Your emotions are there, so you're training yourself. I mean, that is your pleasure. That's your relief, a sense of relief. This is how, muscle memories happen. So moving on to the next part is that they might throw a crumb. At the end of it all, they might say, it was a decent meal, or basically you come away with a sense from that situation that instead of it being a really horrible experience that could have been really painful, it was quite tolerable and you experienced relief, and at the end of that you feel gratitude. And gratitude, intense gratitude, feels similar to love, and you can attach that to your narcissist, and it all goes into reinforcing your own relief and gratitude over avoiding that ugly situation with your narcissist where they're happy and everything was about them. That's a pleasure-pain thing we've got in training ourselves, and you go instantly back into that avoidance of sharing your own voice, avoiding any kind of situation where they're not as happy as you could have been, and in the quiet times when they're not around, as a result, you can feel quite lost. And you can associate a lot of pain with speaking a truth. It can become, if you do this for years, if you've grown up in a place with narcissism, to even tell one person some of the narcissistic abuse that you experienced, where you were framed or you were lied about, or somebody did something who you loved and who you thought should love you back, and certainly the public pretenses is that you're in a loving relationship, deliberately sabotaged your self-esteem in a brutal way, and you knew it happened, but it feels grossly disloyal to speak it out. You also start to question your own sanity if you're going to crack down the middle, because you have all these emotions that are simmering away. They've lost their voice. They don't have names anymore. I think I've summed it up. So this is where I think it's really, there's a beautiful opportunity for somebody who is leaving, who's identified that they have been subject to narcissistic abuse. And if they go further and realize that they have grown up in a pattern of being subject to narcissistic abuse, that they're probably codependent and oversensitive toward their own fault, excuse me, and the impact that they have emotionally in the lives of other people. So they've got boundary issues and they don't have a strong sense of entitlement or ownership over their own emotions. It's really important that we learn what our internal dialogue is, what we're feeling and how we're reacting to that, and that we practice this in our future relationships. So we can have an external focus and say a narcissist does X, Y, and Z. A narcissist will set up a conversation so they talk about themselves. A narcissist will fail in a number of ways to empathize. And there are so many videos on this. We could go on forever, but it's really important to have gone back and looked and seen what would happen to you when you're at that point of decision on your own voice, whether you would speak. And when you put that down, when you went into appeasing mode, and then recognize what happened. For me, it was appeasement, avoidance, appeasement, relief, and gratitude, at which point I would avoid using I saw my own speaking as a very dangerous thing. if you know that cycle and how it happened and you've thought it through, you can recognize it when it starts to happen in other relationships. You can recognize when you start to do it, and sometimes you start to do it inappropriately. Sometimes as a codependent, you'll be in a relationship with somebody with healthy narcissism and healthy ego, and they start to get cross because something isn't quite right, or they've had a bad day, or they're just having a bad hair day. It's possible for you to go into avoidance in that relationship and make it all about them, and it's possible to go through that whole thing, and they may not feel a connect with you though, and they may come after that, so it will look different. And at that point, when they come looking for connection because they're looking for your voice, what do you think about this thing? Where's your response to this situation? You might actually feel like that's dangerous and like you're being hunted because you can't speak, because you're not safe. And at that point, if you treat them as a narcissist, if you're looking at them through maybe they're a narcissist eyes, you can set yourself up for failure in a good, healthy interaction where somebody's actually trying to connect with you. So be brave and be honest. If you, upon using your voice and speaking out, even if it's utter rubbish, you realize upon saying what you had to say that your fears or your, that you realize that maybe you didn't have the right end of the stick, even if you were, God forbid, wrong with what you were thinking or feeling, a healthy person is prepared to walk through that with you. Come to an understanding, hug and or laugh it off later if they care for you. So, survivor, be brave. Learn your own cycles, recognize how you're reacting, and if you're in a relationship where you recognize upon practicing using your voice that that's being discouraged and the narcissist is feeding into your tendency to use that cycle, you're avoiding, you're appeasing, you're experiencing relief and gratitude on a regular basis, then you know for yourself right there that it's not good enough for you, that you need to be present in your relationship. So, yeah, I hope that helps. My goal was to pull the focus away from looking at external reasons, external indicators, and know yourself better.